Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Clarks. I'm Javian.
I'm Tyler.
And Tyler and I want to wish you all a happy new year. You know, we're recording this, I think, the first week of the year. And this is the time that, we all are planning or making plans for this new year in hopes to improve ourselves and have the most fulfilled year possible. So, with that said, Tyler and I decided to do an episode on goal setting. Tyler, take it away. Tell us about goal setting.
Yeah, so basically today we want to talk about how to follow through on your goals and how to actually be successful. And that kind of starts back to how to set achievable goals that are maybe just a little bit beyond your reach, but over time you're going to be able to achieve them. And then also, what does that look like in terms of how your goals affect your lifestyle? Because a lot of times they go hand in hand. So we'll kind of go through those points and kind of what JV and I do when it comes to setting goals and actually following through and achieving them. But before we get to that, Javian, what are you drinking?
So I'm glad you asked, because this is the most important thing of the day, especially in the morning time. So I'm drinking. A few episodes ago, I told you the story of me going to Grassroot Coffee out in Thomasville, Georgia, for those listeners out there. So I went back and got another bag of their beans. So this time I got their Ethiopia Sidma, which is a dark roast, very dark roast. I want to kind of give it a try, but it has tasting notes of cocoa with a hint of cherry and strawberries. So
Nice.
I brewed that on my Chemex, and so I'm still doing that, obviously, and it's actually really delicious. I've probably had maybe like 6 glasses of it now, so it's really refined, and even though it's a dark roast, it's really smooth. It's not like your standard dark roast to me. I think
Okay.
if I was just doing a blind tasting and without even like looking at it, I was like, oh, this is somewhere in the medium to dark. But even though it's like actually really on the darker spectrum of dark roasts, so it's actually really, really good. What about you? What are you drinking this morning?
Yeah, so I was in Jacksonville for the holidays, and a friend of mine gifted me a bag of beans from Bold Bean, and this one is from Colombia. And I typically, with Colombia, they're more on the darker roast, medium to dark, which is kind of like the other side of the spectrum for me. But again, I'm kind of in the season of just trying whatever, and seeing what works and what I like and don't like, kind of changing my palate a little bit. And it's good. It's a little earthy. It is darker. It definitely has more of a heavier mouthfeel and weight in terms of the body. But overall, it's good. So I'm liking it.
Awesome.
I'm liking it. And I'm doing it on the V60.
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah, I'm still out of filters for the Chemex. So I'm just doing the V60 right now.
You just need to go order your box. Maybe I'll send you a box of filters.
Yeah, I know, right? So Javian, when it comes to the beginning of the year, and I know you're very goal oriented, do you sit down the beginning of the new year, first week? Do you sit down and do it before the new year starts? That way, when January 1st comes, you already have your goals aligned. What does that process look like for you, and has it changed over time?
It's definitely changed over time. I think the older I get, the more I plan. I think when I was young, definitely when I was in like undergrad or high school or anything like that, to some degree, even a master's student, I didn't really do long-term planning at the beginning of the year. I mean, I had goals like, if I was preparing for like a recital, or if I, had a competition coming up, like I would plan for those things. But outside of that, like I didn't at the start of the year. So, all right, these are the things I want to accomplish by December of this year, right? And the older I've gotten, I've definitely seen the value in doing that. So I like to do that more often. I mean, I probably started doing this maybe about 4 years ago. I really like figuring out what are my goals and things I want to accomplish, both professionally, both emotionally, physically. all those different things, because it all works together as we've talked about before. So I like to start kind of like the beginning of the year rather than starting, at the end of December. I try to give myself like a few days to just kind of like reflect on the year. So this is actually we're recording this, like as I said before, like the first week of January. So now this week, I especially yesterday, because technically yesterday was our first day back to work. So that's when I was like, all right, now it's time to kind of plan out everything, both, work related, what I personally want to accomplish either in my planning, physically, all these different things. So that's why I started yesterday, because now I can like look back. All right, these are the things I accomplished last year, and these are the things I want to do this year. So I'm actually in the process of planning out and setting my own goals for this year. So for me, if like I said, I break it up in different areas. So if I'm planning on my personal life, like let's just take like my physical goals. Like as we've talked about, we're really into like health and working out, all those things. So I have goals for that, right? And I give myself like little check marks. I try to, at least when it comes to my physical goals, I give myself weekly goals and then monthly goals. Because for me, if I can think about the micro stuff, which is like me planning for that week, to me that's more micro. I can accomplish those things more consistently than saying, okay, by the end of January, I want to lift this, or I want to be at this particular weight, right? For me personally, I'd say, all right, by the end of the week, I want to do this. I want to be able to do this specific thing, right? And then over the course, if I have that goal every week of the month, by the end of January, hopefully, I would have accomplished that bigger goal. And I
And
do that from month to month. You just want to say
and
something?
those weekly goals that you have, those all lead you to the monthly ones, right? Like
Correct. Yeah.
you base your weekly goals off of what that monthly goal
Yes.
is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's kind of like planning to plan. Like I have my big goals,
Hmm.
and then I plan how I'm gonna get to that goal. So I kind of like
Yeah.
it. I like to think of like, when you're setting your goals, is like set goals that motivate you, right? Because ultimately that's what we want to inspire to achieve something. So that comes from like having that desire, something that motivates you. And then what I was just talking about, setting these small goals, is kind of like set smart goals, right? So that can be specific goals, that can be very measurable goals, attainable goals, as you said earlier, relevant goals based on like the things you want to accomplish in your life or your career or what have you, and then like goals with a time frame. Make sure you give yourself those deadlines for your goals. And then I like to excuse me, I like to put my goals in writing. Like I write them down so I can see it. It's one thing to like
Hmm.
think, oh yeah, I got to do this thing. It's another thing when you actually see it, it's written down. It's a way to hold yourself accountable, and then making an action plan. So me setting these weekly goals is like me setting my action plan to achieve the bigger goal at the end of the month, and that month leads to the next month, and so forth and so forth. And then of course, with any goal, and it's I think we all kind of fall in trap. We set goals in January, and by like March or April, we're kind of forgotten that. So the
Hmm.
biggest thing is like stick with it, you know. And I think if make those plans, and you separate it, and you make these small micro plans to set yourself for the micro plans. I think for me, that's why I've had the most success doing it that way. What about you?
That's good, man. I like what you said about daily, weekly, monthly,
Hmm.
all leading up to the yearly.
Hmm.
I used to be super, super, super into like the whole New Year's resolution, because it was like, oh, it's a fresh start. It's a new year, a new thing,
Yeah, new me,
and
new year, new
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're still, yeah. Anyway, and I think in the last like couple years, I mean, I still have goals that I set, but I think now it's more so the goals that I used to achieve and want to do are now more of a lifestyle.
Mm.
And so it's a lot easier for me to say, like, for some people that are like, hey, I want to start working out and this and that, like, that's fabulous. For me, it goes, well, that's the bare bone minimum. And so for me, it's digging in and saying, okay, well, here's where my fitness level is. This is what I want to get to within it. And for me, it's not about like, oh, can I stick with it? It's, can I not get injured? Can I stay healthy? Can I do the things that are going to allow me to reach that goal of physical fitness? And yeah, like you said, it's setting these. I think we get too focused on like the big picture sometimes of like, all right, I just want to be healthy, for instance. I want to lose weight, but we don't know what that actually means, and then we don't know what that entails in terms of how that's going to affect all the other choices in your life. Like if you're used to snacking at 10 p.m., maybe take a look at like what you're doing and saying, okay, well, if I want to achieve this goal, here's a daily goal of cutting off when I'm going to eat at the end of the day. If my last dinner is at 7 or 8, or my last meal, then that's it. Like I'm going to take that snacking out at 10 p.m. And so now you start to look at it and saying, instead of just looking at the numbers and trying to like check these boxes of, okay, I worked out today, that was the goal. It's kind of like, how is this goal going to affect the way that I live my life and other facets? For instance, like for you on weightlifting and goals, sleep, that's a big component of being able to train day in and day out. So now that's going to affect how you sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to affect, maybe if you're getting 5 hours of sleep, now you have to change your lifestyle a little bit to say, well, I need 7 to 8 if I want to be able to achieve the goals that I have on paper. So I feel like I'm coming at it from a different perspective and different angle now, because sometimes we think like, oh, well, I just want to start running every day, and I just want this to be my goal, which is great. I think doing something that allows you to get outside and have movement is awesome. But then I think you also have to sit down and say, okay, well, if you want to start working out, that means you're going to have to plan when you're going to work out based upon your schedule, which means something is going to have to shift or move within that. And so you kind of have to like play Tetris a little bit to kind of figure this out. And one of the great things that you said is, yeah, after the newness wears off, it becomes stale, it becomes old. And that's why I think, like, if you can say to yourself, why am I doing these goals? Why am I writing this down? And if the why is strong enough, if it's, well, this is just my lifestyle. Like for you, man, like you don't even think about, like for you, like taking a day off of working out, like that hurts. Like
sometimes
you feel
it feels good.
Yeah, sometimes it feels good. Sometimes if it's too many of those days in a row, you say, if I don't get back on the train, like that habit is going to be a lot harder to start back up again. And so being able to like, one, forgive yourself when you do get off the rails, right? That's a big thing too. People just say, oh, well, I've ate like crap this month. And they just say, well, I'll just, whatever, I guess it's just not meant to be. And it's like, no, forgive yourself, start back up. Like that's the process. Like you can't have success without failure.
Yeah.
Like those two go hand in hand. And anytime you're trying to do something that's a little bit beyond your capabilities, or something that is hard, like you're going to have resistance. And I think that's the thing that we all face in February, March, and through the rest of the year is resistance. Yeah. Resistance to continue doing the things that suck, even when you don't want to. Like it's easy at the beginning of the year because you want to. You have that will and that drive. But it's like, okay, let's get down to it when you're in the middle of the semester or the end of the semester with juries, you're stressed, you got all these things going on, and you feel that will and that resistance. Like you feel your willpower going down, you feel the resistance going up. That's the time where you got to look inward and say, like, my lifestyle and my why is bigger than all this,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I know, a little different perspective. That's just kind of what
great.
things that I've been thinking about is just kind of like,
yeah,
it's bigger than just, that's, I think starting at that point is amazing. And then I think for people that, maybe have been doing it for a while and are just, I guess maybe where I'm at, where it's like, okay, what's actually going on here? Like me, is this just like a yearly thing? And it's like, no, it's it's every year is building off of the other year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when you're practicing, you built this foundation, and hopefully every single day that you're going in, you're just adding a brick after brick after brick, you know, and you're building that myelin in your brain, and you're getting stronger, and you're being able to, like, when it's going out, you know, I'm going to go out for a run and it's raining and it's sucky outside, and you say, yeah, well, it is what it
It
is.
is what it
Maybe
is.
5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I would have been like, oh, it's raining. No, bump that. But now it's like, okay, well, if you're going to do a race and it's raining, you better train in it. You know, the conditions are the conditions. You can't control it.
Oh, I like that. The conditions are the
Yeah.
conditions. You can't control it. That applies to so many things. I mean, in life, you know, playing your instrument, like the conditions are the conditions, and it's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And you have to face it head on. You know, absolutely. Like, yeah, I completely agree with you. I think um, the idea of addressing the lifestyle and and what you do on a personal basis definitely affects, it trickles down to everything else, right? It affects you as a student, you know, how you go about your business as a student, how you go about your business as, you know, a musician, practicing, the discipline, you know, if you're into fitness, the discipline to be consistent with your nutrition, your workout process, either lifting or, you know, running or whatever it is that you do. And I think that's really important. And I think sometimes that gets overlooked. I think when we set goals, we set goals on like physical things, like, you know, I want to do these specific things this month or by the end of the year, versus addressing like, I want to change my mentality. I want to change how I
Mm.
think about things. I want to change how I process information, you know? And then that can lead to these long-term success, regardless if that was your goal or not for the year, you know? I think everything that we do starts with some form of discipline and figuring out how we react to the adversity that we face in life on a daily basis or weekly basis. So I think that's really important. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that does get lost when we're thinking about, oh, here are my goals for 2021, without addressing the root cause of why we have failure, you know?
Right. Like if you, like for instance, my wife and I, we sit down at the beginning of the year and we set our financial goals for the year, how much we want to save, how much we want to invest, all that kind of stuff. But those numbers also now dictate the other spending that we do. So it's not just about hitting those numbers. It's okay, if we want to hit those numbers, all these other things we have to be conscious of. You know, if we're going out to eat, like how often are we going out to eat? Which means, oh, you need to keep a budget. You need to keep all your receipts. You need to figure out how much money you're spending, how much money you're making, what your net income is or loss is, right? Like it's not just one thing just to set a number. That's great. But like you said, it trickles down, which means it starts with, as soon as you get paid, where's your money going? You know, do you have the discipline to hold off from buying this thing and say, you know, that's not really like an A purchase right now, a purchase that I need right now. This is something that maybe 3 to 6 months down the line, if I put a little bit in savings and save for it a little bit, I'll be able to achieve my original goal while also getting this. But that comes with like the delayed gratification type of thing. So yeah, I think it just comes down from like setting these goals, but that's not enough. And then it becomes like, okay, how is that going to affect everything else? Which I think I missed a lot, particularly in my early to mid 20s, because I used to be so frustrated, you know, because I was like, oh, I want to start doing this thing. And I'd start going to the gym or I'd start practicing more. And then I would flounder, you know, I would like not continue with it. And I realized like I didn't understand, one, the discipline that it takes to do those things consistently. And then even within those goals, like you said, I didn't have goals within goals. You know, I didn't have daily goals with it, which could be literally, man, just showing up to the gym.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
getting your foot inside the door and just doing it.
Yeah.
Or if you're having a bad day, you know, going for a walk. you
Mhm.
know, going for a 5-minute run or something like that, you know, doing whatever that is. And I didn't have that structure, that discipline. I didn't understand it from that level. And that's why I spent many years unsuccessful and very frustrated with it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I completely, like I said earlier, like I didn't think about these things, especially, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Certainly not
Yeah.
as an undergrad, you know. So I mean, life is a journey, and figuring out how to do all these things, and that's not to say like Tyler or myself have all the answers. We are also, figuring this all out, right? And there is some like trial and error in all of this, definitely. So yeah, what you said is definitely accurate.
Yeah.
I
A lot more failure than success. We'll put it
Yeah,
that way.
I recently saw this quote. Hopefully, I don't misquote it. I don't know if it. I think they attribute it to Mike Tyson. I'm not sure if he actually said it or not, but the quote was something like, um, he says, quote, like, I always tell people who try something and fail, congratulations, because some people don't try at all. So it
Yeah.
is part of that idea of like, you know, failure is part of the process, is how you bounce back from them things, and setting those goals, even if you don't attain all your goals, if you're going about it, consistently, persistently, at the end of the day or at the end of the year, you're going to accomplish so much. You're going to have so much more mental and physical clarity on things about who you are as a person, as a musician, everything. And it trickles down to everything, a family member, husband or wife or a student, all those things.
I think it prepares you for life.
Hmm.
You know, it's like by failing and setting a goal and not meeting it, as much as it hurts, like that's real. And you and I know have both experienced that, from losing auditions to not getting jobs to, um, you know, not having successful practice sessions, not health goals and things of that nature. And it's like, that's real. And the more you experience that, the more that you understand that's part of the process. Like if you were always achieving what you wanted to achieve, there, it would be easy. Everybody could do that, you know.
Hmm.
But the failure allows you to reassess, to take a step back, and to understand what didn't go right. Maybe I got a little too ahead of myself. Maybe I try to rush that process. Like it makes you understand time a little bit better, and
Hmm.
also the way that you work.
Yeah.
Man, I did kind of rush that. I kind of got a little bit ahead of myself. I thought I could do it. Maybe not yet. Maybe 3 months from now. Maybe 6 months from now. Oh, wow, I'm really not as disciplined. I'm looking back at my calendar when I went to the gym. Man, maybe I'm not as consistent as I thought I was. And it's good. It's like a humbling experience because it shows you where you are.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we kind of make up this image, just like when we're playing, you know, the way that we think we sound is a lot different than the way the audience hears us. And it's the
Hmm.
same thing with us and how we live our lives. Like we may think like, oh yeah, I'm super disciplined, this and that. And then you look at yourself and you're like, oh man, like I can't even make my bed. It's like, look at all the dishes in my sink. It's like, how come I don't have the discipline to do that? You know, and it's very eye-opening, but again, it prepares you for life. It's like, can you pivot? Can you improvise? Can you get back up after getting knocked down? You know, all these traits that we admire from people that are highly successful or highly um, functional. You know, like they're able to just keep going and keep bouncing back from things. Like I look at people like that, like somebody like Tom Brady, and it's like, oh, well, you look at how many successes he has and this and that, but it's like, man, he's lost a lot of games.
Yeah.
You know, like Michael Jordan took years before he won his first NBA championship. Years. You know, I was watching LeBron play, and he like airballed a free throw,
Oh yeah, yeah, I saw that.
and I was like,
How does that happen?
how does that happen? And then you realize we're all human. Like it happens. You know, maybe him airballing a free throw is, you know, maybe that happens like 2% of the time, whereas me, it could be 98% of the time. You know, so those differences are there, but it's like we get in this fake facade that like these people have it like it's just perfect all the time. And it's like, no, it's like through them setting goals and being disciplined through it, they built up consistency overall, you know? So anyway, that's kind of a side note, kind of rambling at this point, but
No, no, you're right. I I do this exercise with my students, typically at the beginning of the semester. So about making plans, and we try to come up, or we try to formulate a plan that's similar to what I was talking about. Setting these weekly goals and monthly goals, and having the big goals at the end of the semester. And that could be something as simple as knowing all my major scales, or something like that, or knowing my solo for for my jury at the end of the semester. And then like their weekly goals can be something as simple as, all right, I want to be able to play my D harmonic minor scale flawless by the end of this week. But I kind of like what you're saying, like I've I was working with one of my students last semester, and he was playing something, and I think his perception of how it was going was very different from what I was hearing, right? And it's like, and I asked him, it's like, why are you playing it at this tempo? He's like, oh, he didn't really have an answer. I was like, are you like performing this with an orchestra tomorrow? He's like, no. I'm sorry, are you performing it anytime soon? He's like, no. I said, okay. So let's be disciplined of how we prepare, right? Let's make these small goals so that in a week or a month or months from now, this excerpt is really clean and is really refined. It doesn't have to be performance tempo right now, right? We want to do our due diligence and prepare it. We want to set these goals in order to get to the finish line, the tempo that you're trying to play it right now. And then we don't want to build bad habits in the process of doing that. So he's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I was like, we have to, it's kind of like you were saying about discipline, and how that, if we're thinking about how we practice and those goals that we set, discipline is so important. I think we're all guilty of trying to perform something or play this new piece or excerpt or whatever, faster than we need to at that particular moment. And having the discipline and the goals to go, like, to really like get down to the what I call like the nitty gritty of whatever the piece you're playing. And what I tell my students, like, all right, let's, you and I have definitely talked about this when we were talking about like preparing for either auditions or recitals or any type of performance, is like, let's start super slow. So if I'm setting a goal, my goal for today should be, let me play this like a flow study, half tempo, just for today, or just for this week. And maybe next week, my goal is to articulate all these things at a slow tempo. And maybe the next week is, all right, let me bump it up 5 clicks. And those are part of like the discipline and goal setting that, I try to do in terms of like my practicing, or what I encourage my students to do. And again, it comes down to like the discipline, as you're saying, it's, I think a lot of failure comes from the lack of discipline in our goal setting. And to me, that's one of the hardest parts. We want instant gratification. And with instant gratification comes, oh, I got to play this at the tempo that it's written, even though I'm missing stuff in the process of playing through it, right?
right. Well, and the other thing too that you mentioned is having a coach, having somebody speak that into you, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you saw something your student didn't see, and you were able to provide that perspective to the student. And which brings up two thoughts for me. It's like, one, always having somebody that's further along the journey than you
Yeah.
are that can help provide perspective for you. So it's like having a teacher, having a coach, having a fitness coach, like having, those people in your life, like mentors essentially, that can help you and provide that perspective when that perspective gets off.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is kind of that's somebody that's kind of like further along, having somebody that's right next to you. So having somebody that's on the journey as well to be like an accountability person, you
Mhm.
know. And if you're, you have people that are, trying to do the same thing as you, or, both into, like, for instance, like you, like lifting weights, or if I find people here that love running, like joining a running club, for instance, where, they're going to meet these times every week, you're going to go and run with people. And it's like, oh, okay, it's a lot easier to run with other people than it is to go out there and run by yourself.
Yeah.
So setting yourself up for success like that way, where like you're placing these little plots of time in your schedule where it's going to get done because people are either counting on you, or you're doing it with someone else. Like, I think that's super helpful. And I think that's something that gets overlooked in our field, is like, oh, once you achieve certain success, then you don't need a teacher, you don't need a coach. And it's like, back to Tom Brady, he still has a quarterback's coach. He still
Yeah.
has all these, like, they have so many coaches that are helping them every single week,
Yeah.
for all their games.
And I think regardless of how much success, kind of like you were saying with Tom Brady, there it's always great to seek out that coach. There's for people who have seen, there's in the 80s when Wynton Marsalis and Kathleen Battle recorded the Baroque duets for trumpet and soprano.
Mhm.
There's a documentary of them recording that album together. It's on YouTube. I think it's split up into like 6 or 7 videos. Anyway, during that documentary, each one of Kathleen Battle and Wynton Marsalis, they both go to like their teacher while they're recording to get like some help and to work on some stuff. And you think like Kathleen Battle at this moment, she's the soprano with the Metropolitan Opera, and Wynton, one of the
He's
greatest
winning.
trumpet player. Yeah, he's Wynton, one of the greatest trumpet players of all time. You would think, oh, they have it all figured out. They don't need a coach or a teacher. But they went back to their teacher and they played their stuff for their teacher, and wanted to get some feedback and really work on some things. And it's like, man, I'm really struggling with this. And it's like, it makes you remember that regardless of what spectrum you're on in terms of your talent level, we all need help, we all need a coach, we all need someone to guide us. And I think that in watching that clip, it kind of humanized these people to me, because prior to watching them, I thought, oh, they're like amazing musicians, they have it all, they have all the answers, right? And watching that was like really fascinating to me. And it's like, and it's just like reaffirms like no matter how much success I may have or may not have, like I can always ask for help. I can always ask my teachers, like, I really need this, or can you hear me play something? Even if I've been removed from school for like 10 years or 20 years down the line, like I have people in my life that say, all right, can I play this for you? I'm really struggling with this. And it's not, and there's no shame in that, getting help or having someone help coach you along, or having someone to go through that experience with you to kind of help keep you accountable. And that's I think what everyone should strive to do. Have somebody in your life to help guide you, have somebody that's going to go through that journey with you, because that's going to help you be successful or meet those goals, at the end of the year or years from now. And I think sometimes we feel like we're in the trenches by ourselves. In reality, we don't have to be, and we shouldn't be.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%, man. Like, and it comes from humility too.
Yeah.
Like being able to say, like, oh, I want somebody else's perspective. Oh, I want some help on this, or like more refinement on this and that. And it's like, when you come from that place, it's only going to suit you better. Particularly, like, you think about with music, like you come from that place and it's like, man, think about, like, you don't have, like, your ideas aren't limited. Like you're constantly searching for new ideas. And that makes me think of like Warren Buffett. And I think he reads like 3 to 4 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this guy's been in the game for, I don't know, like decades, right?
Oh
And it's
yeah.
like, he's still reading about investment and how to refine his skills 3 to 4 hours a day. And it's like, he doesn't need the money, right?
Oh, definitely not.
I mean, he's a student of the game. and
I
that's
like
why
that.
he's continuing to be successful. And like, you see that, like working with like Tom Hooton right now, like he is a student of the game. Like he loves it. And in fact, this brings up the seminar that we had with him recently about goal setting. And he had it divided up into 4 boxes. And this is kind of like my last point on setting goals. So you have box 1, 2, 3, and 4. And box 1, that's the you got to get done now. So this could go to like, I think this applies to like daily, monthly, and yearly goals, right? So the box 1, get it done now. You got to pay your bills. You got a class, you got homework, you got stuff like that you have to get done today, like immediate. Box number 2 is after you get stuff done in box 1, you go and get that done. So maybe it's after you attend class, then you go work out, then you go practice, then you go for your run or whatever you want to do. Okay. It'll look different for everybody, but you can't get to box number 2 until you've done box number 1. Box number 3, here's what I want to create this month. This is kind of like your monthly goal of, okay, after I've done box 1, 1 and 2, then I can start working on, maybe it's to learn 4 etudes, 4 Clarke, or not Clarke, Arbin etudes, characteristic studies. And so you're like, okay, well, I can't get to those until I finish my fundamentals, which are in box 2, so you start, it's like plotting things out in your day to like help you achieve that. And then box 4 is maybe your yearly goals, your dreams, aspirations, things of that nature, like a little bit further of a reach. But it's like people get stuck in box 1, and most of the time we can start to get to box 2, but it's like rarely do we ever get to 3, and 4 is always dormant. Like we never see box 4. We sometimes will think about it, like maybe we're on a drive, like a road trip or something, we'll be like, oh, it'd be so cool to do this thing. But because we haven't established the discipline and the understanding of what our goals and achievements are in box 1, 2, and 3, like 4 never gets touched.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a cool way of kind of making you see your goals a little bit different, and how like like you said, like you can't get to that yearly goal without doing what you need to do today.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, as we all know, Tom Hoot knows what he's talking about.
he's extremely disciplined and
Yes.
very thorough. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned is how thorough, and it's like, oh, okay, I want to be able to get my triple tonguing up to, pick a number or whatever.
Yeah.
And then from there you dissect it.
Mm-hmm.
What does this look like to actually get me up there? And then when things aren't going well, do I have the maturity and understanding to stop and kind of go backwards and reassess?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing too. It's like when things aren't going well, we just kind of give up. And that's what I'm experiencing right now with like my retraining with my injuries. Like, you might have a couple of days where things go well and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'm starting to figure this out. And then a couple of days where it's just like,
mm-hmm.
And can I pick myself up and say, what's the bigger picture, the bigger goal, with the unknown of not knowing if I'll make a full recovery or, what that's going to look like. So, yeah, it's really cool to see how these high achievers think, how they plan, how they organize and structure their day to day. And if you've seen it too in his practice room, he's got all of these whiteboards that he has goals and that he has like monthly and weekly stuff. I mean, it's very thorough.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. So he's making these small plans to achieve the larger goal, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I think, that's a good stopping point. When we come to talk about Tom Hoot, he definitely knows what to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, we like to end on a fun segment called "What Are You Listening to?" So, Tyler, what are you listening to these days?
So, on my drive back up to Virginia, I was listening to a lot of John Mayer. Nice. I like that because I started listening to John Mayer in like middle of high school, like when I was able to drive. So there's like this kind of freedom associated with him. in particular, like his old albums, like Room for Squares, and oh, the name is slipping me. The other album. Anyway, but yeah, so I was listening to a lot of his stuff on the way up, and honestly, yeah, I've kind of been like detaching from a lot of things. Actually, one of my goals this year is not goals, but just like limiting how much I consume of things, like, and also decipher between the things that I consume, are they benefiting me or is it like a negative consumption? So really trying to like, especially with, again, all the retraining and stuff, it's like I have to, if this is lost, I can't be successful here, because it takes way too much stimulation and too much focus. And I have to be in the right place to actually have like see success and have a productive session. So yeah, and to be honest, man, it's almost hard to like listen to trumpet music because it's like you can't do that thing. So I'm kind of like taking a step back from that and saying, okay, well, what can I listen to that actually like excites me and provides non-judgment, about myself. So anyway, John Mayer.
John Mayer, that's what's up. So it's funny you mentioned that, some little nostalgia. So this week I was listening to some Justin Timberlake albums, like the
2020,
the 2020 Justified. I listened to some of his live performances. He did this live performance some years ago. I remember seeing it in grad school, and I recently rewatched it. But he did this. This is when he was promoting his 2020 album, and he did a live performance on the Jimmy Fallon show or the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. I don't know which one of those shows with Jimmy Fallon, and he did like a medley of his other tunes. If you get a chance, go to YouTube, type in Justin Timberlake on Jimmy Fallon.
I'm actually look that up right now.
It's a melody. He's with his band, the was it the Tennessee Kids?
Oh, and yeah.
I think it's the greatest performance I've seen on like that type of show for what that is, for that genre of music that I've ever seen. Like the arrangements are so good, but it's a really, really incredible performance. It's about 10 minutes, I think. I think he does like 4 of his tunes from his first 2 albums, and it's really, really, really good. Like live music, like it's legit. So if you guys go on YouTube, it's there. Which then I was listening, like I said, I was listening to him, and then I kind of went down a little rabbit hole, and I ended up listening to the last NSYNC album. I think it's called like Celebrity. Which a lot of that album still holds up. Like there's some really cool tunes on there. I was like, okay. I haven't listened to it in like, I don't even know, maybe since middle school, early high school. So a lot of it still holds up. So kind of like you, a little bit of nostalgia and kind of going back. So that's honestly who I listened to this week. Believe it or not, I was, reviewing some applications and listening to NSYNC on the couch.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. That's awesome. That's good stuff. You can't go wrong with JT, man.
Yeah. He does some good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people, if they want to connect with you, where can they find you on the social medias?
On the social medias. If people want to contact me or follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Nerdy Prof. That's with 1 F. And then Facebook, just my name, Javian Brabham. You can find me there. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, so I haven't been on at all this year. So what, today's day?
Today's
5.
the 5th.
Day 5, yeah.
Day 5.
And I don't plan on getting on it really at all. So you can
shoot your
my
email.
Stuff's still active. Yeah, you can shoot me an email, and if you want to shoot me an email, you can send a message to Coffee and Clark's, and or comment on our YouTube, and we'll get back with you.
Yes,
Or Apple
please.
Podcasts.
Yeah, if you guys have questions or some feedback
Yeah,
or
yeah. Like if
guests
there
you'd
are
like to see,
resources and
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
leave a comment in on YouTube. We're on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. But if you want to leave a comment, you can easily leave us a comment on YouTube, and we'll get back
Hmm.
with you as soon as we can. And go ahead and while we're talking about YouTube, you can subscribe to us on YouTube and subscribe on Apple Podcasts to the podcast we have there, and give us hopefully 5 stars if you like what you hear. So yeah, anything else for you, Tyler?
I think that's it, man. Yeah.
Uh,
Hopefully we'll get some sunlight up here, man. It's
oh
starting
yeah, yeah,
gray.
it's a little gray. We've been
Yeah.
getting nothing but sunlight, so I guess the
Hey,
joys of
man.
one of the few
It's
joys of living in the South.
I tell you what, man. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate the conversation, man. It was
Me
good seeing you,
too.
and
Me too.
kicking off 2021 strong.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Coffee and Clarks. Go have a cup of coffee while you enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again for listening. We'll see you guys next time.